Product operations has been a relatively hot topic in the world of product management for some time now, maybe a few years. But the reality is that many people talk about product operations, and when you are in an organization, especially if you are a product leader, one of your main thoughts is like, well, do I need this? Do I need to change processes? Why on earth would I start doing this when I already have a successful business and potentially it's just a waste of time. I don't want to do that. So what I want to do today is to introduce to you what I'm using as a product operations maturity model that helps organizations understand how mature their product operations are. So this doesn't mean that you need to have a product operations team. Every single organization has some kind of product operations. What this model is doing is just to help you understand what is your level of maturity. This operating maturity model or product operations maturity model is going to have 4 main categories. The first one is going to be product scale. Like how good you are scaling processes, how good you are, let's say, at the basics of product management and being able to scale this across an organization that is moving from, like, let's say, 1 team to 10 teams. The second category is going to be alignment. In this category, what there's going to be is the understanding, or what is going to analyze is the understanding that whether teams and leaders really coordinate around shared goals and outcomes. How well are they working together to achieve some vision, some strategies, some goals? The next one category is going to be facilitation. Of course, a ton of the work of product management and product teams is to make sure that the product teams actually can do their work. So this category is going to focus on that, more like the processes themselves. And finally, there's visibility, as I see it. How well are you sharing the work that you're doing? You might be doing a great job, but if you're not sharing it, if there's no visibility on what's going on, then it's going to be very difficult to act upon it, to make educated decisions based on what are your plans, what is the feedback that you are getting. So creating feedback loops and so on. Now, each one of these is going to also have subcategories. And before I dive into that, I would like to show you quickly how this is going to look like. Because basically what this model does is that it creates like a sunburst. And each one of the categories and subcategories are going to be rated between 1 and 10 based on how early you are in starting these processes, or how proficient, or if you are like the world-class best in breed for a specific category. So this is how the model is going to work. Now, before I move on, I also want to tell you that I have created an assessment for companies and for teams. So if you want to go and take it, you can just go to the link that is in the description and in the pinned comment of this video. So you can just run it yourself and see how it's working for you. And if you're interested, you can contact me, you can share it with me, and I can analyze it and give you feedback on that one. Now, let's go through the different subcategories because, product operations and product management and product leadership, all of these concepts are very complex processes. And they have a ton of categories or a ton of areas that you have to actually work on to really be able to deliver your job. Doesn't mean that you have to be world-class in every single one of them, and doesn't mean that everything has to be perfect and that you are in some areas in early stages. That's not necessarily a problem. We'll come back to that later. But now, the first one, when it coming to product scale, the first category or subcategory that there will be there is managing insights. How product feedback or insights or new opportunities are collected, then organized and connected to product decisions. So this, I'm not talking just about feedback from customers. I'm talking about ideas of entering a new market, ideas of maybe using a certain technology, I'm not thinking about AI, to solve the problem in a different way. It can be AI. Then the next subcategory is going to be product discovery. How well are your teams identifying and understanding the customer problems before they commit into solutions? This will have different aspects, but understanding what is the problem that customers have and understanding those needs that they have. Can be problems, can be needs. It depends a ton of the type of product that you're building. If you're in the B2B, which usually are the people that are in this channel, you probably are more in the problems that companies have. The next one that you have is a solution discovery. How well your teams are actually working then together with customers to really validate, understand that the solutions that we are building really are solving the problems that the customers have, and they are doing it in a good way, from design point of view, in a usable, maybe great experience for them. Next one, and again, continue with the topic of discovery, is business discovery, something that many teams unfortunately fail to do. Understand what is the potential value and the market potential of opportunities. And I'm sorry, you're not going to do this with RISE score for most of the cases. You really had to understand what is the business opportunity. You really had to understand what is business modeling, what is to create a business case, how to really understand the potential of a market. The next one that you're going to have to do is prioritization. Well, here maybe enters RISE. But here what you're going to do is evaluate and decide across different opportunities which one is that you think is going to have the biggest potential, business potential in most of the cases, for your company or for your product. Next, road mapping. You probably are familiar with this. I mean, everybody knows road mapping, but that doesn't mean that we do it very well in practice. And there is many aspects to road mapping than just putting features into a Kanban board or timeline or whichever type of board you're using. But basically how you are understanding the capacity, how you are laying out plans, phasing out projects, how you communicate and align across different teams. You also have next the product quality. How reliable your product is. How do you test it? How you measure performance to make sure that when you are adding more complexity to the product, because every time that you add new features to the product, you are adding complexity. How are you making sure that the product quality is not degrading and hopefully is even increasing? Finally, last one of this category is going to be the product launch. How well are you coordinating releases across product, go-to-market teams, marketing, sales, support, services, solution engineers, whatnot? You probably have a ton of teams that are depending on your launch. They are not just there waiting for you to do your work. They have their own work. How well are you coordinating all this process? Next, now we go to alignment. Within alignment, we are going to have 5 main subcategories. First of all, one that I see many companies fail to have, a product strategy. Many companies are so obsessed with OKRs, saying that OKRs is the way to set goals, but OKRs are not necessarily the way for teams to really be able to prioritize their job. Many times they're too high level. At 20% growth is very difficult to prioritize against because it can be achieved in many different ways. So OKRs, if they're defined well, could work. I still believe in having a good traditional product strategy. That product strategy is going to have goals. They can be the OKRs, they can be KPIs, and those are aligned to each other, like in a KPI tree. And from there, you really can or are able to then plan prioritize and help teams really have ownership of the work that they are doing. The next one is systems thinking. How well your teams understand and manage dependencies and interactions across the organization. This is very important. Many teams think that they're here to do their job. I'm just product team, I'm just R&D team, I'm just marketing. I don't have to care about what the rest are doing. This is a very narrow point of view, especially if you are in a product team. You should be quite broad. You had to interact with many, many different teams. You cannot be narrow-minded. I have made that mistake myself. Then, how good are you at cross-functional alignment? This is the next step. And here enters the next level. How well product teams, along with go-to-market teams, legal, any other team that is depending on the work. Because it depends on of the industry you are. You are going to have, definitely the go-to-market teams are going to be there. So marketing, sales, support services, however it's called in your organization. How well those teams are aligned and focused to achieve similar goals. And there's going to be in other teams, in other organizations, different teams that they had to align with, like regular teams that work with regulations. If you work in industries that are heavily regulated, automotive, construction, medical, there's many of them that are heavily regulated. You really had to understand that expertise. No product person can have all the knowledge. They had to work with other teams, other people, other stakeholders that are going to bring that. This bring that knowledge. This is what cross-functional alignment is all about. Then there's going to be the product trios, another subcategory. Okay, this is probably something that, well, it depends a lot on the company again, but most of the companies in software, they're going to be working, at least to a certain degree, reasonably well. Who you're going to have here? A product manager, a designer, and a R&D lead. Sometimes a software lead, sometimes an architect. It will depend a little bit on the organization. How well these teams are working together. Ideally, the product manager is not working on a new idea for a new request, then pass it to the designer who goes and designs the UX, and then finally the R&D takes all that and starts working. This team has to work together. It's not just about working together, like passing the requirements from one to another. It's about sitting down together, understanding the dependencies, seeing how they can bring value to each other. None of them is perfect without the others. They had to collaborate. They had to bring those requirements, those specifications together. So really understanding and building, or potentially building the best solutions that they can. Ideally, they also work with the customers to validate whether it's the problem, the solution, and the business. Finally, I'm probably one of them that I see the most problems having is, together with the product strategies, strategic alignment. So I earlier talked about cross-functional alignment. This is more about aligning within teams. But then there's the strategic alignment, which is aligning your work to the strategic goals that you have. So if you have a strategy, we are going to enter a new market and we are going to focus in these two industries and make sure that all the work that I'm doing, that my product teams are doing, is around that area. And the sales team are focusing on building the capabilities, finding the prospects, the same with marketing, in those industries and in that same geographical market. This is what strategic alignment is. I am focusing all my work on my strategies. Why this is important? Because product teams have a ton of work that is just one-off, that is done because of one request of one customer that nobody else has, or one sales case that we are going to close a deal, but nobody else is going to benefit from this. So when you're doing this, that's not a strategic alignment when you're doing those cases. A strategic alignment is when you are making sure that you have a high-level strategy and that everybody is focusing 80% of their work there, not 10 or 20% of the work, because that's not a strategy, that's wishful thinking. Now let's move on to facilitation. In facilitation, we're going to have 6 subcategories. Here, first of all, we're going to have planning. How do you make sure that you work together with the teams? This is enabling now all the things that we have talked earlier, basically. How we are making sure that we get all these things, for example, the product trio or the cross-functional team, to make sure that the teams are planning to work together, because there's this still notion that only product decides what we're going to do and everybody else has to run with it. It's not necessarily that. Product might be influencing maybe a little bit more the direction, and it should be aligned to the strategic goals of the product, which rarely product does. Maybe, hopefully, a product leader does it. But now, what you have to do in planning sessions is that you have to make sure that you are aligning already from the beginning with not only the product trio, but also with your go-to-market. If you had to align with legal, anybody that has a saying in this product that is going to be working, they know from the beginning what is coming. And they are able to start understanding what type of work they are going to have to do. This happens way too late in most of the organizations. And also, understand how you're going to face projects, because the reality is that many times companies fail at doing this also because they put these ginormous projects and these enormous ideas, opportunities, and they are not able to face it. How am I going to break down a big opportunity into small deliverables that are going to bring value to the customers? Next, capacity. How am I making sure that I am managing the capacity that I have to really balance the delivery, the discovery, the strategic initiatives, and that I am able to tackle the work that I need to do to be achieving the goals that I have? Data governance is the next one. How your product data definitions, ownership, quality are managed across the organization, understanding what data we are going to gather, why we are going to gather, how we are going to display it, where is it visible. All these things is very important, something that rarely and in many occasions, unfortunately, is too scattered and very difficult then to manage. I'm not saying that you have to have the one massive dashboard that answers every question. That's not the case. Then there's validation. How product teams test assumptions and reduce the risk from before investing in development. You have to do validation at different stages, and you have to make sure that you are able to sometimes test ideas, sometimes test solutions, and so on. Then, go-to-market facilitation. Again, how teams support marketing, sales, and other teams prepare for market launches or market entry or work that they had to do. And finally, ideation, something that I think that is very important when thinking about product operations, is that product operations is not just about setting up heavy processes. It's about setting processes that also promote teams to be innovative, teams to have new ideas. So being able to have those moments that you have an ideation workshop where you are more, let's say, less structured, where you are able to bring new ideas. The last category is visibility. So here, there's going to be, again, 6 subcategories. First of all, there's going to be 3 types of roadmaps. The first one that I have is discovery roadmap. Why? Because most of the companies don't even document what are they doing for discovery. You are not able many times to just run and start doing implementing something without really understanding, hey, if I want to support this new capability in my product, is this really an opportunity that I should go after? Having that into your roadmaps, having the specific roadmaps for discovery is very important. Feature roadmaps, how to make sure that a feature roadmap is actually established, how it is displayed, what is the information that you have there, how mature it is. It's not just a one line. As you probably have seen many of those roadmaps, feature roadmaps, where there's just one line, and yeah, you're going to get a feature. Is it going to be what is defining one line? I'm sorry to say, most of the things that you are doing as a product manager cannot be defining one line. And if you do it in one line, designers are going to interpret it in one way, R&D is going to interpret it in one way. And yes, I know that you're going to say that, well, they're meeting all the time, but if nobody's documenting it, everybody has their own idea in their own head, and it's never aligned and it's never presented or documented anywhere. Another one, commercial roadmap. These I almost never seen in companies. Maybe one company, I think I've seen it. How product initiatives are aligned with the market, sales, commercial roadmaps. Because right now, what you see in many companies, you have a feature roadmap. But how we are going to enter, what campaigns are we going to do, what are the activities that sales are going to be doing, who they had to be contacting, how do we update the documents for sales or help them do it. All these things very rarely documented, usually like quickly manage and hope for the best. The next category is again product data or business data. I don't want to say just product data because there's a lot of focus on product usage, performance, but there has to be the business side. How well we are selling, how well we are actually achieving our goals, understanding how can we help as a product team, as a product operations to really support the business, because that's why the company is paying you for. Next, the one that nobody does well, documentation. If there's a company that does this well, I will be extremely surprised. How well product knowledge, and I'm not talking about product documentation necessarily, but documentation your processes, on the ways of working. The decisions are documented and shared. For example, you have a new person coming in, will they understand your processes? Probably they will have to go through like 20 meetings to try to understand them, because there's no way that they will find this information anywhere. That's the sad reality for, I want to say, 80 to 90% of the companies. Finally, tooling. What are the tools that you're using to support your product management work, your discovery, your delivery, your collaboration? Does it have to be one tool? No. Can you take the best in breed? Yeah. Can you take one that is more like an enterprise tool that helps me with all different type of processes? Sure. The important thing is that does it serve your needs and how well it integrates with your environments, with all the other tools that you're using. So when you are doing this, when you are analyzing your maturity level, you have to understand that there is nobody that, based on how I presented this, I'll show you here in a moment, you're not going to have everything green. You're definitely not going to have everything in world class. You will be happy if you have a few in world class, like a couple of them. That will put you ahead of many other people. And you probably will have quite many in some of the yellow, oranges color, and also some red ones. You are never going to have everything perfect. You have to balance where your strengths are, understand where you want to be really strong, and which ones are the ones that are stopping you for moving forward, from growing, for setting product operations at scale, basically, or say building product at scale, and preventing your teams from, when you start growing, that if your team is growing like this, what you don't want is that your delivery or your efficiency starts to go down. Because that's one of the biggest problems that companies have, is that when the teams grow, the profitability, or not profitability, but the productivity starts to slow down big time. And there's more meetings, there's more syncs, and basically productivity starts to go down the drain. So do this. Take the assessment. It's in the link. It should take you maybe 10 minutes to do. It's not that long. It's basically going through each one of these topics and subcategories and asking you to rate it, not to rate it from 1 to 5 or 1 to 10, but to actually choose an option of how you're doing it at this point. If you do this, and if I get a ton of answers, then I can start maybe sharing a little bit what I see that are the trends that I see in the industry. I can show some example like I have here that I've shown in this video. And basically what you will see in general is that most of the companies, what they're going to have is that they are going to be good in certain areas. For example, in this case, they are going to be really good in the product quality. They're going to be very good in how the product trio is working. the capacity, the validation, how they are doing go-to-market facilitation. But then they have other problems. Like, for example, the product strategy is lacking. There's very to no little data governance. There's no business discovery or systems thinking or really product data, business data, availability, what the discovery roadmap is. So all these things are missing in the company. Other areas, they are doing much better. And the idea here is that when you see this gives you an idea that, okay, now what I had to start working to really maybe start having more clarity on the work and more synchronized teams are, for example, starting to have a clear product strategy, starting to bring a strategic alignment. That could be your first things. Then start to do better business discovery. So actually not just putting new features on the backlog and in the roadmap, but actually looking at opportunities and understanding what is the potential of these opportunities if I go there. And am I really able and equipped to win in this market? For example, it can be about data. I'm not able to make good decisions because I have very bad data. That's the reality of many companies, or missing data, because it's just not there. So maybe you put a bit more effort in actually start to structure a little bit what is the data that you are going to need, ideally align with your strategic goals, that is going to help you follow up and understand if what you are building is the right thing, and if you build it, is it actually being successfully adopted and it's actually impacting the business. So this has been a long video. Sorry for that. And thank you very much if you are still here. So product maturity or product operations maturity, is a very important topic, because sometimes it's difficult to understand where you should be investing and helping your teams develop in the future. If you enjoyed the video, please give it a like and subscribe to the channel.